Hey guys, hello everyone. You're on the Tell Me If You Can channel, and today I've collected 3 stories. The last one will give you the chills. Listen to the end. There's a man trying to get in my window, and I don't know what to do. I don't usually post stuff like this, but I'm freaking out, and I need advice. 14, M. Something really strange has been happening the last few nights. I've been too scared to tell anyone, but I feel like I have to now. It started 2 nights ago. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when I heard this soft tapping noise. At first, I thought it was just the wind, or maybe a tree branch, but then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from my window. I live in a 1-story house, so it's not that high up. But it's weird, because there's nothing outside my window except our backyard and a tall fence. I tried to ignore it, but the tapping didn't stop. I finally worked up the courage to get out of bed and peek through the blinds. That's when I saw him. There was a man standing outside, just staring at my window. He was tall, with a pale face that looked almost empty, like there was nothing behind his eyes. He didn't move. He just kept staring at me. I panicked and ducked down. My heart was racing and I didn't know what to do. After what felt like forever, I finally crawled back into bed and pulled the covers over my head. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination or maybe a dream. But last night, it happened again. The same soft tapping, the same man outside my window. This time, I didn't even look. I just froze, hoping he would go away. I told my parents about it this morning, but they didn't believe me. They think I'm just having nightmares or something, and they told me to stop watching scary movies before bed. But I know what I saw. Tonight, I'm scared to go to sleep. What if he comes back? What if he tries to get in? I've checked the window multiple times to make sure it's locked, but I still feel like it's not enough. I don't know what to do. Has anyone else experienced something like this? Should I call the police? I'm scared, and I just need someone to believe me. Please. Someone was outside my bedroom window last night. I am super creeped right now. I, 27F, was home completely alone and sleeping in my bed in the middle of the night last night. I was woken up by the sound of someone trying to push up on my locked bedroom window. I couldn't see the window because it was past my footboard on the other side of the bedroom, and I was laying down. But I knew that unmistakable sound of the window being locked and the jiggling sound it makes, because I've locked myself out plenty of times and have tried to get through that window before. I sat up to get a look and seen a dark silhouette of a person looking in the window. I laid back down for a second, really confused and tired, and when it actually clicked what I had seen, I sat right back up. They were gone. I tried to get back to sleep, but was spooked for the rest of the night. In the morning, I thought I might have dreamed it after I called everyone I knew that it possibly could have been. And nobody knew anything. Nobody was at my house. Nobody I knew would just try to get into my bedroom window in the middle of the night anyways, especially when I don't think this person even knocked on the front before trying to open the window. I went outside to investigate to see if I was just crazy. I looked at the window, and there I seen the handprints of whoever was trying to slide up on the glass. Also, it had rained, so I could see muddy shoe prints going to and from my window. I have no idea who they were or what they wanted, but I'm so glad my window was locked. I bought a house a few months ago. It was ridiculously cheap and big, and I mean huge, a spiritual ancestor to the modern-day McMansion. Best of all, I could make some extra money by renting out the mother-in-law apartment and master suite, which has both a balcony and a sauna. I love it. It isn't perfect. The master bathtub leaks, the electrical outlets are wonky, and a tribe of raccoons lives in the balcony turret. The biggest problem, however, is the kitchen floor. It's made of oak floorboards. According to the realtor, it was laid in 1939, 2 years after the house was built. I don't know what the floor was made of prior to that, or why it matters, but she emphasized that little factoid several times. Whoever lived here before me started to replace it and apparently gave up halfway through. They tried putting everything back together with disastrous results. Dozens of inexpertly applied coats of varnish and lacquer pool unevenly across the boards, trapping layers of dog hair, spilled spices, and dust. Specimens of mundane domesticity trapped like mosquitoes in amber. It looked awful, a bit like a frozen sea, what with the lacquer's uneven waves, and smelled weird. A little moldy, a little rotten, and a little sweet, especially on warm days. So, I decided that replacing the kitchen floor would be my inaugural home improvement project. I tore up the floor last Saturday, starting at 7. By 8, it was clear that I had 2 kitchens. That's right. Underneath the tragically misused floorboards was a whole other room. It was shallow, maybe 7 feet deep, with a wood floor of its own. The boards were worn to splinters in some places, soggy and blooming with mold in others. I glimpsed a small table surrounded by chairs, an old-fashioned oven, and a tiled counter. Chintzy wallpaper provided the final absurd touch. Honestly, I was over the moon. My damn house had a whole secret room. It was a childhood dream come true. I dragged my ladder into the house and carefully eased it down into the second kitchen. It hit one of the moldy spots and sank unpleasantly before settling. I climbed down eagerly, accidentally stepping in the moldy mush. Grimacing, I smeared my shoe across a dry patch of floor and commenced exploration. The room spanned the entire length of the house. The kitchenette bled into a living area with a small rug, sofa, and end table. Beyond that lay 4 rusty bed frames topped with mattresses in varying states of decay. The floor around the beds was black and spongy with rot. Every step left an indentation behind that quickly pooled with an oily substance. Past the beds was an empty stretch of floor. The boards quickly gave way to hard-packed dirt. I couldn't tell if they were buried or if it had never been finished in the first place. At the very back of the room, flush against the wall, was a bookshelf. I tromped over eagerly. I love reading. I love books, and I love antiques. Maybe this would be a convergence of all 3. But no. To my immense disappointment, the shelf was empty except for a single title, thin, wide, and rectangular. Obviously, a picture book. I picked it up curiously. It looked almost new, with the kind of unremarkable glossiness I associate with elementary school libraries. The gray dust cover bore 4 fuzzy, child-shaped silhouettes. Each figure had round eyes and carried long sticks. The art style was weirdly charming, somewhere between Quentin Blake and Lane Smith. The austere title arced over the shadow children, the people who come after you. Excitement pulsed again. Maybe this was a scary kid's story, or at least a playfully gory romp a la Roald Dahl. The spine creaked as I opened it. It was empty, no words or illustrations to be seen. Blank black pages gently reflected my flashlight beam. I flipped to the back. On the very last page were 2 lines, neon green ink over dark paper. The people who come after you are the people who come after you, mildly amused. I turned the page. Tucked between that cryptic little couplet and the end paper were 3 Instax pictures. In case you don't know, Instax minis are basically Fujifilm's answer to Polaroid cameras. For some reason, I love the absolute shit out of mine. Since Christmas, I probably spent more money on film than on coffee. The first photo showed a beaming man on my front porch, arms slung around his kids. It had to be the family who owned the house before me because I recognized everything. Familiar climbing roses snaked up the columns, and my fat flower basket hung from the front beam. Even on paper, the family's joy was infectious. It made me smile. The next photo showed the kids together. The girl was a little older, with her father's apple cheeks and guileless smile. The boy looked timid, almost frightened. Something about him tugged my heartstrings. I know what it's like to be anxious in front of a camera. I love taking pictures, but I hate being in them. I tucked it aside and checked the last photo. My breath caught. It was me. Me, trying to smile, but really just grimacing. I stood underneath the flower basket. The man was sitting on the top step and had his arms wrapped around my hips. The little girl stood to the side, eternally frozen in a truly impressive eye roll. A low pitter-patter sounded behind me. I whirled around and swept my flashlight across the room. Shadows stretched and jumped, clustering in corners and dancing along the long expanse of wall. But that's all they were. Shadows. With a lovely accompaniment of scurrying rats, I snapped the book shut and practically ran toward the ladder. I accidentally clipped one of the beds, sending it scraping across the floor. My foot sank into another puddle of wet rot. Feeling high and almost buzzy, I looked down. A long tangle of wet black hair lay curled in the puddle. My foot had pressed several strands into the mushy wood beneath. It looked like a cross between vomit and a wet fossil. I darted away and scrabbled up the ladder. The second I reached the kitchen, I kicked off my soggy shoes and ran outside. To my horror, the porch looked exactly the same as it did in the photos. Climbing roses, flower baskets, kitschy little decorative accents. They all belonged to me. I clearly remember putting them all up myself. So how did they show up in the pictures of the other family? I'm not married, no boyfriend even, and I most certainly have no kids. So what the hell was this? Someone's idea of a joke? I shuddered, then set the book on the porch. I carefully flipped through it, scanning for things I might have missed. Photos, drawings, words, anything at all. Toward the end, I noticed something strange. The opening lines, "The people who come after you are the people who come after you," had shifted to the second to last page. The very last page now bore an itchy, scratchy sort of watercolor illustration. It showed a bookshelf in front of a locked door, half hidden by a coat of paint. Underneath the picture were the words, "The people who come after you dance and sing in hidden rooms." I slammed the book shut and took several steps back. Then I called my sister, Mariah, and asked point blank if I had any kids or a husband. Her response was essentially, "Lo what?" She asked if I was joking, then if I'd been drinking. My tension eased somewhat. Mariah's at my house all the time, and she's honestly my best friend. If she says I'm an unmarried, childless mountain dweller, then I can trust her. I played it off as a joke to which I'd forgotten the punchline. Easier than it sounds when you're a ditz like me. And asked her to come over for lunch to scope my secret room. She was predictably enthused and agreed to swing by at noon with a pizza. I waited on my porch, splitting my attention between the photos and the picture book. I was too afraid to go back into the house alone. Mariah arrived 1:15, complaining about the crowd at the pizza parlor. She set the food on the porch and asked, "What are you looking at?" I hesitated briefly, then showed her the book. "Cute," she said. Pointless, but cute. Then I showed her the photos. She scanned them agreeably until she came to the one with me. Her face lit up. Are you going to be a stepmom? Oh my God, they're all so cute. No. I took a deep breath and did my best to plan my words. I don't know who they are. I found all this in the room under the kitchen. Judging by her expression, she thought I was playing a practical joke. Are they all hiding in your house? Are you going to surprise me with your new family? I led her to the underground room. Her merriment quickly darkened into unease. You're not about to murder me or anything, are you? She paused by the end table and picked up a stuffed turtle. She gave it a shake, then tossed it on the sofa. Why is the floor so squishy? Did it flood down here or something? Suddenly, muffled music drifted through the room. It sounded low and weird, almost watery. The hair on my neck prickled. I took a few steps forward, carefully sidestepping the greasy hair puddle, and listened. There was no question. The music was coming from behind the far wall. This isn't funny, Mariah said. Well, maybe kind of, but not enough to justify the effort. Come on, we need to get out of here. What? No! I want to see what's behind your scary bookshelf door. She strode forward and cried out as she slipped, tumbling onto the ground. Her hand sank into the wet hair. She pulled it up, eyes wide and horrified as long tangles dangled from her fingers. I helped her to her feet and led her to the ladder, fighting the urge to scream as the music grew steadily louder. Mariah scrubbed her hands frantically, retching as the strands of hair slid off her fingers and into the sink. By the time she finished, the music had cut out. I have to take pictures of this shit, she said. She whipped her phone out and pulled up the camera app. She framed the shot, then frowned. What the hell? What? She restarted the app, then tried again. This is insane. I came up behind her and looked over her shoulder. The phone screen displayed a showroom-quality kitchen floor, whole and very much in place. No holes, no missing boards, and certainly no hidden room. I tried my phone and had the same result. We both saw the hidden room with our own eyes, but the phone cameras had other ideas. I ran upstairs and grabbed my Instax camera. I quickly shot several photos. To my relief, each one showed the kitchen as it truly was, torn apart to reveal a subterranean living space. The excitement evaporated once the implication hit me. Mariah and I quickly left, but not before grabbing the pizza off the porch. I did call the police. The music indicates that someone is actually living there. And in hindsight, the grease puddles and loose hair scare me. Since it's a non-emergency issue, the dispatcher gave me an estimated call-out time of 6 hours. Seems a little excessive, but Mariah's letting me stay at her house until then. I don't know what's wrong with my house. I guess the cops will shed light on it in a couple of hours. But that doesn't explain the pictures of me and the family that doesn't exist. I hate to whine and plead for help, but anyone have any ideas? Thank you all for listening. If you want to hear the rest of the story, please like it. See you soon.